Nope, camera's still got a mind of its own. I'll give up. I'm not going to keep stopping to change blooming. The problem is I've gone from, as a lot of the guys, we start off, you know, from painting behind a small tripod, which is hard in itself, to painting with this one, which is it's at the side of me, and obviously with the crank in the arm you can move it over, but as I say, because of the weight of the camera, and it's doing it now, it keeps sliding out of shot. So we can get a bit closer. Just putting a bit of lace. Piping, whatever you want to call it. Also we're painting a dark red on a dark blue, so it's going to take a bit just to build that up. But the one thing you learn about painting is patience. It's funny, I don't have any patience in life in general, but I learnt it with painting figures. I mean, since I've just been looking up, or I'd stopped painting, I was looking up at some of the uniform again on online, and I noticed one of the brown versions of this jacket, a reenactor had got a lot of those Austrian knots. Right, one moment. Sorry guys, it's just that time of year. We've all got the windows open, and anybody that wants to make some noise decides to do it when Gav's doing a video. it's just one of those things. If it gets too bad, then I'll knock it off. Just I hope they just give me the chance to get this figure done. As you can see, I'm using the well, you probably can't see, but I'm using the Army Painter Insane Detail brush at the moment. Again, I've got no affiliation to Army Painter or anybody else. It's just that I think it's handy when because people will often say, you know, what brushes do you use, what paints do you use? This has got a very long bristles to it. It's got pros and cons for that. I suppose the pros are you're not so likely to get paint up the ferrule, so that's the metal bit that the bristles go into. Because it's quite a long one, and it's great for doing straight lines because it is. Let me just see. Let's get it in. There we go. It's quite a long one. It's great for doing things like you know, for doing piping and things like that. Anything that is thin and needs a straight line to it. But for doing things like eyes, you just got to be a bit careful because it's so long. You'll often be pushing the tip into the eye socket long before you actually think you are. I've done that a few times, and you end up with a giant fried egg eye, which you then end up having to repaint. I think he's got a piping on his collar as well, and this is all still the base. I say we're not over. It's quite a nice. It's quite a nice type of uniform to paint. Whether it was actually a nice uniform to wear is debatable, but it's a nice uniform to paint. You know, you've just got that different colour variations, reds, blues, stripes are. I've seen the stripes on the trousers in different ways. I've seen them thick striped, narrow striped, the same, say, darkish blue that his jacket is, and then I've seen them in a lighter blue. I'm going to do them in a lighter blue just to give, again, because I've seen it, I've got the more or less artistic license to go with that. Yes, I mean, that might not be right, but I'm going to go with it anyway. It's just a bit hard around the neck area with all the strapping and that, to see what's especially with my light being blocked off. I've also noticed just around the edge of his sleeve, I've left out some blue. So luckily, with a wet palette, which is always good, I've got all the paint still on there. So I don't think there was any that I've seen around the actual very edge of the cuffs. I don't think so. Famous last words. I'm just going to, technical word, bodge me paintbrush into this underarm piece here, because I still think that will show up. You'll guarantee when I go to paint the canteen, it'll actually be jacket that needs filling in. Right, now that's our base coat. As you see, it's quite a light pinky type red. But I must admit, I'd highly recommend the Andrea red set. I haven't tried any of their others yet. I keep meaning to get the green and the blue, which is, you know, the main ones I'd use. Definitely the greens I want to get. It's just getting around to getting them. Right, our other stuff should have dried off by now, so we're going to use the same army painter with that long nib. We're going to work on the shirt a bit. Still, although I might be changing the colours around on these are the two base colours, so we're going to use the base, and this first highlight is going to be used on everything, and it's then that we'll diverge slightly, probably. I keep saying probably because you know what it's like when you're just doing it for yourself. You don't have to think about saying something and then realise you haven't done it. So and keeping it where you can actually see. Got a bit of red on his hand there, but again, it's really that flesh is there for us just as a guideline, really. So we can see where his hand is and things. So while you don't want to get too much other colours on the flesh, at the end of the day, if it takes you another couple of applications, it's not it's not too odorous task. I think what I want is a darkish red for the piping. And probably a pinky red with the shirt. We'll go probably with a darkish red or darker red with this sash, and the hat will be probably a slightly lighter red. One thing we haven't done then would probably that piping's going to go around the back there, so that's something I hadn't thought of. We'll quickly use our base again. Now my hand's decided it wants to shake. won't really see that, but we'll know it's there anyway. I've got this piping on there. Now the piping on the sleeves will probably have to be a bit more pronounced, or we'll be putting some little quite bright highlights on there just so it stands out very slightly, you know, from the darkness of the... I mean, in retrospect, probably when they were washing these, when they did get to wash them, or the salting crustaceans with obviously all the sweat and that, they probably would have bled, the darker colours would have probably bled into the piping, I would have thought. But again, we're just using this first highlight to reinforce the red really, where the base has got that pinky colour. I mean, I would have thought you could easily do it like almost like a changeover. I don't know, as I say, there'll be guys out there that know all about the Louisiana tigers and the Wheats tigers, as they were. And so I know that they did wear that brownish type jacket when that came in. I'm not sure, but I would have thought there would have been a changeover maybe, where you've got, you know, the jackets, everything was too, you know, and obviously the supply problems that the South had, they were, well, even the North to some degree. I mean, you know, you'd have guys wearing, they might be wearing a dark blue jacket, but it might have been, you know, one of those sack jackets, and, you know, one of the longer ones, and the same with these guys. You know, you'd have probably had guys wearing both types of jacket, and probably even, I mean, you know, probably get shot down for saying it, but maybe some butternut jackets, you know, civilian jacket, you know, these guys were living off the land really to a greater extent. So, as we all know, contractors aren't exactly great when it comes to supplying uniforms that actually last in the field. The British Army's ones, you know, through long periods of colonial history, were always falling apart on the first week of campaign. Right, guys, bear with me a second. I'll shut off the camera for a minute, and I'm just going to fish out some more reds, and we'll see where we go with that. So that's our guy at the moment. Right, guys, we're on to our next reds now. Now, these don't have particular names with the Andrea box set. It literally is number 3 highlight, number 4 highlight, if you catch my drift. So that's what they call it on the box. I was going to say I hadn't mentioned any Vallejo colours, but it's not that hard, you know. You'll see, you'll be able to, you know, do a comparison with the reds I'm using. I would say for the shadow areas, my go-to colour, as I probably said on one of the other video, is whole red. So HULL red, whole red. That's fantastic as a base, as a darkish base. I mean, a lot of people use black red or red with putting their own bit of black in, but to get a more warmer colour, a less harsh colour, you can't go wrong with that whole red. It's a lovely colour, and then you can always put a small bit of normal red into it to start it off, you know, once you're on your first highlight, I should say, and then put red in, and then obviously you've got your scarlets and things. But it's a beautiful red as a base to work with. So we're going to go with our second highlight here, and again we're going to do it on the piping. And when that's on, I'll decide if I think we're going to need one of the darker colours in the Andrea shadow range, because in that box they've got 2 shadow colours as well. But what I tend to do is use them after I've put my main brighter reds in. Again, you're always fighting with the, you know, if you're doing it just to take a photograph of and say, yeah, I've really made a nice job of that. Obviously, you can go to town with how many reds, how many blues, whatever, you know. But I absolutely understand if you've got a dozen Confederate infantry regiments to put on the table, you're not really going to want to, obviously, push the boat out with the amount of paints that you're using. I mean, we go a bit artificial when we do this anyway. I mean, obviously, if you're doing a larger scale figure, you're accounting for the shadow areas, you know, where obviously there'll be more darker reds and things. With a war games figure, you're needing it to look not toy-like. That's the wrong word. You need him just to obviously show up a bit better en masse, or even if you're doing a skirmish game, you know, on the tabletop. Making no sense whatsoever as usual. That's what you get if you want to ramble off, Gav. You get one. It goes all over the shop. Let's do that bit under the pack. Now that really is in the dark shadow area, but we still want to show it's there. A bit more around there as well. Right, I'm going to use this next highlight, the highlight I've just been using on the rest of the jacket. I'm going to use that on the hat as well. And I think we'll be using, again, they don't call it a particular colour, but it's more like a scarlet. It's got a nice bit of orange in it. That's our little cap done. We'll use this bit of scarlet on the, I keep calling it scarlet, but the final highlight in the Andrea reds. But I never say never, you know, that a figure's done until I'm actually ready to varnish him. So it could be a case that, you know, you've done all the figure, and as I say, always just leave it then and have a look to see if you're happy. I'll quite often stick an extra highlight in here or there, even if it's only a dot. One thing I did notice when I was looking up the uniforms, they don't seem to have follow the French route of, I don't know if you've seen those Zouave photographs from the very beginning of the First World War, or from the, I think, Franco-Prussian War, and they'd have all their accoutrements, all the, as we call it in the British Army, the monkeys and parrots, all stacked up on the back of the pack, all the cooking pots all neatly strapped down on the back of the pack, about 2 foot above his head. Thinking, that can't be. I mean, I know you going into a fight, you drop the packs and everything, but even still, I don't think that's you know, the most was it ergonomical way or whatever they call it to move your stuff around. These I don't know, you know, obviously not into reenacting, but these packs actually look quite good to put on and to store stuff in. again, we'll use this final highlight for now on the top of the hat again. Again, try and just be sparing. It is where you think the final high point is. But this is, you know, I can't recommend this Andrea Red set enough. As I say, I'm not connected with them. I'm obviously not being sponsored or anything. It's less opaque. You know, you don't need the amount of coverage than you would do on the scale 75. And I just think they've really nailed the combination of colours. The only thing I do is, one thing I would have probably liked to have seen them do is put I can't remember what it's called, Amaranthia Red. Let me just get it down without tipping everything over. Amaranth Red, which is this, I've shown you before, this like orangey red, and that is a lovely colour, providing you really thin it down. You need again, put it on your nail, and you need to be seeing your nail almost underneath it. And that is a lovely red, just to, you know, to get that more orangey faded look. I really swear by that. That's another one that in your armoury I would suggest that you have, because it is a cracking colour. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to lean over at the moment and see. I was just debating whether to use, I think I was going to try a bit of Carmine Red on this shirt. It's not going to be overly noticeable, but just to try and get that bit of a break up. I don't think this one's going to work, to be honest with you. Might have to do the Amaranth Red maybe, but I was hopefully going to use that in a minute on the actual hat itself. Right, let's see how this looks. Because we've got that pinky red base colour with just the first highlight on, so I've deliberately left, I haven't actually cleaned a bit of paint off that, I've deliberately left it, so I'm applying that slightly extra amount of paint. I just thought it's done it, but not as much as I'd hoped, so I think we will maybe try no, we definitely don't want that one. Right, this is another nice colour, Sunset Red. It's a nice, it's a pink, yeah, I agree. But it does replicate a more faded pink. I've got a Harry Potter figure, Hagrid, that I've painted almost complete in the background, and I'm looking at, and I used a lot of this on that to give that more faded look, and it worked a treat. So here goes nothing. It's not as if we're applying it over a great area, so I want that bit of a washed out look. And again, we're doing one figure here, and I know you're probably saying to yourselves, well, I ain't got time to, to show a washed out look or whatever. I totally understand, but you know, if you've got your figures in a row, you know, 6 or 8 at a time, then you could well get away with doing it like that. I think I've just made that slightly too run down, so I'll just put a bit more in. Let's get some off the bristles a bit. again, I'm not after it pink. It's all trial and error, but again, on something that small, you've got the, yeah, I'm alright with that. And there's a bit of, I've just noticed there's a bit of that sash that might be sticking just above the cap box. Right, so that's our guy at the moment. I'm just going to put a tiny bit of this amaranth red, I think, while we're here on the hat. And then we will going down the black route, which there's a fair amount on this, including the musket sling, but I'll probably leave the musket sling to the end because I've always got black on the palette. What I normally do is I'll normally put a touch of the very last highlight into the amaranth red just to bring it down slightly, which is what I'm doing at the moment off camera. Right, let's see how this looks. This could all go completely pear-shaped. Let's just have a look. I mean, it's already doing a decent job. Yeah, I'm liking the look of that. It just gives it that slightly washed out sun effect that you get on like British uniforms. And that's what I mainly use it for, is on the red coats. But it'll work just as well here. Again, my lighting's not great, so you're not going to get all that until I show you some final photographs at the end of the video, but I'm still undecided. I might put a couple of darker shadow areas in, but I'm going to leave that until the figure's, you know, what I call almost or less done, and then you're just doing the tidying up on everything. So our next, as I say, port of call will be the black. Just to give you an idea, I mean, I've shown the wet parents a million times over, I think. Let's just see if I can. I just wanted to show you. These are the colours we've used. I just happen to have got a fresh sheet in there, so they're all the colours. That's the amount. All right, we're doing one figure, so I don't have a lot there, but that's all wet. It's a warm summer's day here. Only the one which is dry because I've used it all up more or less. I just want to give you an idea on wet. If you don't use a wet palette, you know, you might think you're doing it. All that is kitchen roll folded over, baking paper put on the top, and obviously before I put the baking paper on the top, put some tap water in there, nice as cold as you can. You don't want it running. I mean, you can get it wetter than that if you want, but that's just, if I tap that, you just see a bit of seepage on the sides. And that'll do you good for, and if you put it in a fridge or something, not that my wife would let me, but that'll last you for ages, you know. So let's get our straps. It's always nice when they're black. Maybe not so good on a dark blue background, but it's always nice to have those straps instead of white ones for a change. I won't paint the musket sling, as I say, because I haven't done any of the woodwork on that, and I'll just get that all messed all over the black, so it's just pretty pointless. So I didn't have a clue, so I'm going to go down with the camera in a minute. I didn't have a clue really about the backpacks. Obviously we've all seen it, you know, Civil War stuff, and on my subs list I'm subbed to the Gettysburg site, you know, and they sometimes have bits and pieces on there. I had no real ideas. From what I've seen, this is going to be all leather, and you can either use it distressed, you know, putting bits of brown in where it's cracked up a bit, or you can have it just like a shiny one. I will probably do it more like a shiny one. The blanket, I don't know if it'd be a great coat, but the blanket, I saw a nice colour, like a fawny browny colour, on a reenactor's top of his pack, so I thought I'd do that one for him there. Cartridge box will make that a bit distressed, probably, like we did with the rifleman. A bit of brown in there with a few scratches and things on. So yeah, here we go. We'll start off with a larger brush, I think, for the one thing I haven't done is I usually put a small amount of just a tiny drop of brown in my black mixes for things like this. Again, it's a War Games figure. Does it really matter if it's, if it's jet black? Well, say jet black. Most of these colours aren't, are they? But most of the blacks that you get from the different manufacturers. But I'm putting a bit of, what one's this? This is German camo medium brown. I'm just putting a tiny bit of that. I'll just put it on the side next to the black and then just draw it in case I've overdone it, which does happen from time to time. And I'll use that for all the base colour of what we're painting. Right, Gav, let's try again. So I'll just go for a larger brush size at the moment. As I say, from a lot of I know a lot of the Civil War photographs, they love to show, pistols and knives in their hands, and most of that, from what you hear, got discarded once they went to war and found out it was all just too much weight and whatever. But the Tigers did seem to have these like big, I'll call it a Bowie knife, the guys in the States or the reenactors, they'll probably tell me it's different, but a large knife anyway, and they seem to cherish that, and that was at their side, and that's the only thing that's missing on that. There is a bayonet, just poking down, but you'd really have to call that a bayonet. They tended to seem to wear this big knife on the front, which makes sense. Let's just do the side. This is what I'm terrible at. Try not to do that. I'm terrible at getting drawn onto another part. If I'm painting the same colour, I say, oh well, I'm at this end. I'll paint this side of the cartridge box where I'm here, which is great. But then you forget to paint something else. so do try and stick to the actual thing that you're supposed to be painting. It's a really bad habit. Better go a bit smaller here because I'm going to get black paint. I really don't want to have to try and cover that up too much when we start doing the base colours for the trousers. But we're here, we might as well get this. See, this is what I do, I should be doing the other side of that pack, but oh no, let's carry on doing the cartridge box, and that's what happens. You put the figure down thinking very pleased with yourself and realise you've got a nice bright grey bit shining away. Again, I said to you guys, I use a grey automotive primer. Now I'm using my airbrush more to do a bit of scale modelling. Once I'm confident with it, I might use the airbrush to spray primer on figures. It's just that I keep my airbrush all boxed up and everything in a big plastic tub, and it's just a bit of a free-for-all trying to get everything out, so it's just easier to carry on using the spray primers outside to do the figures. But they never get everything, and I use that Vallejo, like a plasticised primer, and I think the one drawback with that is it gets a lot of air bubbles, and you've got to constantly keep blowing it all the time to make sure all those air bubbles are out. Again, that's how I've been using it anyway. This is where you go in blind a bit at the back and then realise you've painted black over everything else. As I said before, when I did the rifle figure, there will be bits of touching up I'll probably do off camera when I've reached a certain stage. But at the moment, you're seeing it as I'm seeing it. We are getting a bit of black overspill around this cartridge box at the top, but we'll have to put up with that, I'm afraid. So we have got black straps as well. I'll obviously leave the black straps off the bedroll, off the top. The one thing is when you're not 100% on a particular uniform, you can't just, I mean, I'm getting obviously fairly decent with the Napoleonics just because I paint a lot of them. So you can more or less pick up a figure now and you know what straps what and where it goes and things like that. But it's always a bit of a nightmare when you pick a fresh figure up that you don't know a lot of. And we're going to have to obviously highlight this black up a bit because it's going to look, we're going to get really dark with our colours if we're not careful with the jacket and everything else. But it's always nice to as I say, to paint black straps. You haven't got the build-up of colour that I would normally put. We've got our belt as well. I think just the classic water drip down the ferrules, just wash that out. We'll go over the buckle because see, and that's what happens. I've allowed a drop of water to stop on the ferrule, and it's come down and diluted my paint to such an extent that I think it's overspilled onto the red. So always if you can, just remember to dry your brush out on that towel that you're wiping your paintbrush off on. Might be the belt buckle that's just a bit bigger, but I don't think they were. Oh, it is. I think it might be. But I couldn't be that lucky. You'll get to when I look at it another time. I'll say no. That's the actual sash you've just painted all over. We'll give this bayonet scabbard a coat of black. Now we've just got the boots to do, I think, and that's our basic black over. Again, we'll do what we did with the 95th rifles. We'll try and mix our blacks up where possible with this. Again, you know, by the time it's had its varnishes on and, you know, it's in among, you know, there's a group of them, or even if they're singles, you know, if you use them on a tabletop or whatever, you might not even notice it's got different black highlights and stuff, but it's just a satisfaction of, you know, that you've done it, you know what I mean? I think, you can be shot down with 1,000,001 criticism, especially on places like YouTube and things, but at the end of the day, we're all our worst critics. And I know that if I just do a fairly bog standard, just use a basic black, paint it over everything, I know it'll annoy me. so and again, we'll do a sole to the boot as well, just an easy brown colour of some description. Right, I am going to take a break to make a brew. Nice drop of Yorkshire tea. No, I'm not sponsored by them either. But I'm going to make a brew, let this dry off for a couple of minutes, and when we come back we'll do the highlighting on the black, which again will be in probably dark sea, or deep sea blue, what is it? Let's get it right, Gavin, if this is a tutorial. Dark sea blue. We'll put some dark sea blue on there on the pack, which will give it that shine that sometimes black leather can give off. We'll be doing probably some black grey on there as well, or German tank grey, you know, that type of colour, and then we'll mix that in with a bit of like light uniform. I told you guys before, some of my paints are that worn out, I can't even remember what they're called, but it's like a French uniform blue, like a grey blue, and we'll mix a bit in there as well to the very, very highlight parts, and we'll put a few scratches on and things like that. The cartridge box, we'll put a bit of a worn leather look with some brown on, just to break that up a bit, and again a couple of scratches on with that. Again, brownish sole to the boot. The webbing highlights will probably go the black grey with again some highlight colours in that as well. So catch you in a minute, guys. Right, guys, the brew has been made. Just for anybody outside the UK, that is the perfect consistency, maybe a bit darker actually, of a nice drop of Yorkshire tea. Right, we're going to go in with this deep sea blue first. See if we can get her in a bit. There we go. And again, this will give us that almost like an oily look, I suppose. I mean, if you really wanted to go to town, you could put some purples or some greens in there as well, as I've mentioned before, in highlighting blacks. But again, it is a War Games figure. It really just depends how much you want to get to see. I've got a bit of primer showing through there. That is the one thing, using the lighter primers. I hear a lot of guys say, well, I like the dark ones because of, that very reason. I totally understand that. I just find it's a grey primer for me. It's just, the best of both worlds, really. Obviously it ain't dark, it ain't light. Yeah, for me it's just about right. Again, we'll get into these creases a bit. Where possible, drag your brush away again from the darkest areas you want, but again, I'm just as bad if I'm not concentrating. I'll just go any which way I want to get the highlight on. Now we are going to be doing some brown on that, but I thought, well, let's mix some of this deep sea blue in as well. It'll just give us a bit of extra variation on the edges. I'm not going to do it with the straps because I just don't think, because we've got doubled up on the straps, I'm just going to give the straps extra bit of black, because I say in some areas I think there's a bit too much water on the ferrule. I think I've covered up enough on the belt, okay. Yeah, on the straps and on the belt, there's not enough showing to make it worthwhile. Might just put a bit on this. I keep calling it the cap box, just because I'll take it where the percussion caps are. Let's have a look at that bayonet. Put a bit on there as well. The boots. No, we'll leave the boots. We'll put a bit of brown on those, I think, when the time comes. So our next stage is our dark grey. We're not putting enough on for it to not dried out in time. So let's go back to the original place we started highlighting. And again, you don't want to cover the entire area up if possible. You want to leave some of the original highlight showing at the edges. And you'll be surprised, even just with just some simple dots, that's all you'll need on a highlighting a figure sometimes. Now I have seen, when I was looking at backpacks, doing some brief brief reading up online on this. When I was looking at the photographs, there were pictures with guys who'd actually got their regimental numbers written on the back, as a lot of countries would have. I just don't know with these guys, so I'm going to leave that black. Now we need a colour. I think I'm going to go with flat brown if I can get past all my lights, and that's mahogany brown. Sorry guys, bear with me. I think we've got the right one this time. Yeah. Flat brown's another good colour to have in your painting arsenal. It's great for horses and bits and pieces. You know, it's that orangey brown in a way already. Yeah, orangey brown I'd say. At this time of year though, everything's so, you know, like viscous, it just flies out the bloody bottles, and you end up with great pools of paint sometimes on your palette, which ain't always good. So what were we doing? Oh yeah, we were going to do some highlights. I'm going to use this as a base. If it doesn't highlight it, that's why we've done the slightly grey colours as well. It just make these stand out slightly. If they don't stand up enough, we can always put like an orange brown on them, but hopefully, I don't think that looks too bad, do we? I don't think I'll do underneath there because it won't really get seen. And that's not laziness, it's just, you know, if you're not going to see the wear and tear under there, there's no point putting it on there. I think I'll just push some black to that far recess. I'd left it because I thought there would be a strap there, but we'll yeah. So we've got a bit of brown around there. We now want to put a bit of brown on the top of the boots. What you're trying not to do is make the boots look, which is always hard, but not make them look as if they're just running through mud. And the problem with a gaitered boot is you've got less to work at. It don't help, but I can't see hardly anything with these blooming lights. So I've probably gone over the top there actually. That's now making it look like a muddy boot. Right, so let's no point doing. We could do. I've seen these backpacks beaten up with obviously the leather chapped and everything as well. I just want to make a slight bit of a difference, so I'm going to actually leave. No, I won't. I'll put a tiny bit on. We've got the paint here. Let's use a tiny, but not make it too overkill. Put them on the very edges. This brush is really losing its tip now. It's a shame. This is a Winsor & Newton one, and I clean it in brush, brush soap. It gets brush fluid through it first before that, so they do get looked after. But I think it's just a case of it's just done a lot of hard work. Don't think we'll do too much. As I say, I want a bit of a differentiation between the yeah, that's all I want to do, I think. Might put a bit around the very edge of the cartridge, well, the cap box. I mean, you don't know how long, these things could be captured from the enemy. They can be handed down 4 or 5 times over from militia units, and units that have been folded into each other. So I would imagine some of them could be quite beat up. I mean, at the end of the day, the rebel army was in the field constantly. I can't see them having too many dress parades once the war really kicked off. But again, I'm obviously been corrected on that. I don't know that much about it. Right, let's just mix a bit of this dark grey in with a bit of the bluey grey, and that should give us our scratches. Again, the scratches, it's this scale. Could you really see them? Probably not, but again, it's just the simple things sometimes that if we can get in shot, the simple things that can lift a figure. The only problem I'd say is where I've gone over a lot of the area with the highlights is when you put your scratches in, you've got to be careful they don't. You won't get that unless you're going to do an even brighter scratch on top. Which let's just see if it'll work with a bit of this neat. Yeah, to a degree that's worked. That's added as a couple of extra scratches on top of the highlights. So if you just use your neat grey blue on a very fine brush like this Insane Detail, it'll just give you that extra highlight. And again, we're using that plain bluey grey on the very, very tops of these. Sorry, that's my phone. I think that's making our backpack stand out enough without making it overly over the top and losing the blackness of it. Right, let's just see. Put a couple of little scratches on there, and more importantly on the sides. Now this is where we'll need it more. Can we see? There we go. I've got a bit too much paint on the tip of this really, but again, we're going a bit over the top with the lightness of the colour. Might have to darken it down. Let's go for the 50-50 mix of the dark grey and the light blue. Just try Try and not get the mix into the holes of the chest straps. And there will be some buckles there, but I've got to look up on just to make sure that I bet you didn't catch any of that. I bet all that was off camera. We're going on to the belt. Again, a slightly bigger belt. I'd have considered doing some scratches, but we're not really going to get that, so we'll just highlight the highest point up there. And we'll put a couple of tiny grey blue tiny nicks on there. And we want to do, I've just noticed behind the pack we could get a 50-50 mix, again using this sharp point just on the back of the backpack. Now all we've got left to do is these shoes. Although we put the brown highlight on it, we're going to put a couple of dabs of dark grey 50-50 mix on the very ends. And maybe on that back heel, obviously that might catch the light slightly. And a tiny bit on that bayonet, because we don't know where the ferrule, the metal ferrule on the bayonet will sit yet without doing a bit of research. Right guys, I think the next stage where I change my paints around will be doing this blanket, because then we can get a black, we can use the black that's still on our palette up to do those straps, and we know all that's done then. I know we haven't done the tassel on the cap, but it's a light coloured tassel, I think yellow. I might be wrong on that, but we'll have to check up on. But when you're doing something like that, wherever you've got your biggest surface area, in this case we've got the blanket roll, the greatcoat, whatever it is, that's the biggest surface area. The tassel's only a small bit, so I would suggest painting all the greatcoat, because we've got less chance of splattering it with the tassel with paint. When we're doing the tassel, it's a light yellow. Hopefully we're not going to get overspit on it because it's only a small part, so I'd suggest doing the larger area first. I know we haven't finished the hat off, but that's not a problem. So join me in a minute guys, and I'll get onto this greatcoat. Right guys, I think what we're going to use now is brown sand from Vallejo as our base colour on this. We'll keep calling it a greatcoat. And then I'm going to see what it looks like. I might use a flesh on top, but I think it's going to be too dark a colour as a highlight, and I think it's looking that way. So I'm going to go over the straps here because I want to get right into the folds with the actual brown colour itself, and that's completely off shot. Sorry guys. actually that's a nice base colour. I was debating whether to do the flesh, but as you can see by we've got his flesh there, this would actually have been obviously the highlight rather than the base. So but I'm actually liking this colour. It reminds me of the one I saw on the guys on the reenactors backpack in the photo. So now I'm just going to have to choose some more highlights, different highlights for it. And this is where doing the larger surface area of the backpack, of the greatcoat, rather than the tassel, you've got less chance of plastering the greatcoat stroke blanket roll when it's complete. Now notice a bit of black overspill. Not overspill, sorry, a bit of we need to tension with some black somewhere there, so before we move on with another highlight colour we'll attend to that. Now is that blanket or is that no, I think that bit there is actually part of the backpack, so we'll take our extra skinny brush now painted it looks like it could be part of the brown roll, but never mind. Right, so that's our base done. I'm just deciding whether it'll need a second coat. Oh, somebody's just learned to use the horn on their car. It's amazing what you find when you look for things. I'm going to go out and say that's part of the... Right, now we've got to find a highlight for this, or a couple of highlights. So I think I've got enough. What do we reckon? I think Desert Yellow, that could be our friend there. Might be a tad too light, but we'll see. What else have we got? Yellow Ochre, which is just a slightly brighter version. What I decided as well when I was scanning around my desk what paints I was going to use for bits and pieces, I've got that flat brown and not a lot of it but enough on my palette at the moment, and I'm going to actually paint the musket, the wood on the musket with that. As I say, you've got to be a bit careful that you don't, well, you don't have to, but you know, again, artistically I suppose, you know, you're not using the same colours on everything. But it's a nice colour for like a you know, an orangey brown wood, reddy brown wood. And again, this isn't actually too far off what I actually saw on the guy's backpack. So again, if you notice, it's just small dots a lot of the time. It's not big sweeping movement, you know, trying to follow the contour of what the sculptor's put in always. Sometimes it is literally just the dab of the tip of the paintbrush. And fair enough, a close-up of it looks it. But when you get a slightly, you know, further away, a bit of perspective on it, it actually works. I was holding my breath there because I was expecting that to, yeah, I think I've got a bit of... Sometimes I just literally put the, run the metal ferrule through the crease of my finger just to get that excess water off. Because definitely on a colour like this, it'll just, you might as well not be bothered painting. Now it's not going to affect you at all because obviously this is all going to be, well, probably segments of, again, put into segments, but I won't get all this painted today. I'm quickly running out of time. So we'll go as far as I think we can go. And then I'll be scurrying to catch up on my commission ABs tonight. And then tomorrow I will crack on with this, get it done. I'm not promising I'll do one of these every, well, promising, look at me like I'm some video star, but I'm not promising I'll be doing one of these every week, because they literally will take a complete day of my working day up. But I will get them done as and when I can. So again, with the light system I've got, you can't see greatly, I understand that, but we're going to do one more highlight on that, and then the black straps. And that actually is not far off what it looked like in the photograph, to be honest. Sorry if I'm taking gulps of tea, I normally turn the camera off, but right, we're going to go for the yellow ochre now. So let's just give you a quick squiz at that. Yellow ochre. Just let me clean her up slightly. Now this will just be some very small highlights with a very thin brush. And again, I've got a bit too much paint probably on. Come on, Gav, get it in focus. Get it in camera shot, I should say. We're not going over the top here. Just a couple of little dots here and there. Just anywhere where you think, you know, the lights. Well, the thing is, it's right saying that, you know, in the real world, you know, the light's shining on it, but on a soft piece of fabric, it's not going to be blinging away, is it? But again, we're painting soldiers here for the gaming table, so they've got to be a bit artificially different. Or for the collecting cabinet. I don't think I'd probably, and I do paint this scale and smaller for collectors, I don't actually vary particularly how I paint them at this scale, unless, you know, somebody really pitched it for me to do so. I save the glazing and the blending for larger scale figures, but at this scale, if people buy them off me, or not so much buy them off me, but, you know, commission me to do a particular figure, I'll usually be talking to them how they, you know, what they want to see on that figure. And usually, if it's for a collector, they just want a very decent standard of a, you know, like a gaming figure, but a decent standard. And obviously, I do more or less the same standard for the War Games table. I don't really agree with this different, you know, was it tabletop standard, and, you can call them gold, bronze, silver, whatever, you know, grade 1, 2, 3, because if you're gonna, again, this isn't calling out any painters. It's just for me personally, I can't see if you're going to charge somebody like, you know, two highlights or for 3 highlights for a certain standard. There's sometimes you just need to do more work or less work on a particular figure. And I always say this to my clients. It doesn't, and this is for you guys. I don't mean this for commissioning wise. I'm about just doing it for yourselves, for your tabletop. Each figure might need something more or something less on it. You know, we said dark blue. It doesn't need a lot of work doing to it because it is dark blue. The black doesn't. Yeah, we've put some scratches in and things, but it doesn't need a lot doing to it. Now the trousers. Now this is where we're going to be throwing a bit more attention at them because they have ordinarily straight trousers. If you've seen any of my work on Napoleonics, I'll do a straight a stripe, you know, but they're going straight down the legs more or less. These guys, it's going to take a bit of thinking about how we address it to get them looking halfway decent. And even then, it's not necessarily saying they're going to be properly, you know, exactly how they should be. We can only do our best. So I think, bear with me while. Oh no, hang on. We won't bear with Gav for a second. We'll get these straps done. And I think I'm going to use this ultra skinny bristles just to. I don't particularly want to go over this light brown because it'll be a bit hard to cover it back up again. There'll be a lot of work involved. And this is where you could put your black straps in first. Again, it is entirely up to you how comfortable you are working. Now I'm not sure with this figure. I've been debating whether to show the figure based, which I probably will do, which means it'll be a delay on you guys seeing this. Obviously you guys won't know because when you do see it, it'll all be done. But you know, you get the drift. So it'll take a couple of days, you know, for the glue to dry off and things like that. So I'm undecided because I was debating whether to hold him back and put him in a unit, you know, buy more figures and put him in a unit. I don't know. I think for that first strap we're okay. It's just obviously, as I say, put in a dark, I need a bit of work on that, a dark, nice black colour over. Let's get some excess paint off. That's where our buckles are. I think straps are one of the worst to do when I'm doing ABs, which are obviously a lot more fiddlier than this. Let's just put a dab of the base colour in there because it's a bit showing. Yeah, I think straps on greatcoat stroke blanket rolls are probably the thing I hate doing the most. I've got to the stage now where faces don't particularly fit. I enjoy painting once you're comfortable with flesh painting. It's that's the joy of the figure. As long as the face is a decent enough one to paint. But I'm not a fan of doing these blooming straps. It's just too easy a lot of the times to get overspill. As I say, if you're doing white straps, it's not too bad because obviously they're going on a whatever, you know, whether they're going on a grey or a dark blue or something, they can be cleaned up fairly the white can be cleaned up, but the black, obviously being a darker colour, is not the easiest. Again, you notice, I mean, a lot of some guys will paint with a figure already based. And you know, with a basic, obviously maybe not with all the shrubbery put around his feet, but I still prefer to base afterwards. Again, I don't know if you noticed, I've tried showing this before, but you can't get it on the camera. This finger here that's holding the cork bung, I place my index finger on my right hand as a, can you see, like that? And that is my brace for when I'm painting a straight line on something, if that helps. I mean, I know you can get holders now with, you know, different braces at different angles and stuff, but that's always worked for me. Oh, if you listen to those land gulls outside, you think I live by the seaside. I'm right in the centre of the UK. Still, somebody hasn't seen the sea for a long, long time. It makes you feel like you're living by the coast if you're in the centre of the country. Right. I think what we're going to do now is just highlight those straps. Battery's also running down. It's annoying, you know. Again, I've had time to do. I thought I'd got 2 full batteries, and I'd got 1 full battery and 1 that needed charging. When I say prior planning, preparations, I won't say the rest of it. You never know, youngsters might be coming across the video. But yeah, that's a bit of annoying. But as I say, I'm not going to get it all done today. So, in one sense, it's not too much of a bother. We've got some buckles, but again, I just need to have a look if they're metal or brass. Right, guys, I'm rapidly drawing out a battery now, so we're going to call that a day for this. Not that it's going to affect you, and I don't intend to put this up. I don't think. Do I? Don't I? No, I'm not. I'm going to do it like I did. No, I'll tell you what I will do. I'll put this this lot up. And you can watch it up to, again, if you've got the time and the willpower, watch what we've got so far, and then I'll catch you again on the next one. So hopefully you will get to see this. I've changed my mind so many times, I'm even changing my mind as I'm talking now, but yeah, I think I might well do. If this is up, thank you very much for watching it, and I really appreciate you taking the time out your day, night or whatever to spend some time with Gav as we all paint our figures together or stick our kits together. It's always appreciated, your company, so and the kind comments and things like that you've done for me over the you know, recently and over the, you know, in the past. It's always appreciated. I'll put this one up, and or it might be in 2 sections. And we'll catch each other very soon for the. I'm going to probably do the water canteen and the haversack next, and then we'll get onto those trousers that we've been putting off for the last couple of hours. Okay, guys, you take care of yourselves. We'll see each other soon.